What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Bituation Room podcast live with your host, Francesca Fiorentini. I'm here after what feels like a very long time. It's only been a few days since Friday, but had a long, lovely weekend with the fam, with the kid, with some relatives in town, and now I'm back to way too much news. But that's okay, because we're gonna look at it a little bit. We're gonna look at the news the way like Donald Trump looks at the sun. You know what I mean? Just sort of briefly, and then turn away because we're all blinded by the enormity of it. So if you are here, get excited. I was gonna tell you to do things, but first, I have to tell you that James Adomian, comedian, is in the room today. Very excited to have him on at long last. Incredible impressionist, has a new special out. He's the best. And he's going to be joining me to talk about, yes, Luigi Mangione, and all of the fallout of the murder of the UnitedHealthcare CEO, as well as journalist Molly White, who reports on crypto, is back in the Bituation Room to give us a sense of what the hell with this administration, with this new political crypto landscape that we currently live in, and how entrenched that is. And we're going to talk to her because it seems like only a few months ago it was like, oh, crypto's done. Crypto, whatever, everyone's in jail. Everyone, oh, okay. Oh, you're buying elections? Tight. And now Donald Trump, of course, wants to be crypto king. So now for the instructions, click all the things, like all the things, share the stream. If you're listening as a podcast, thank you so much for a 5-star review. Just write something sweet, just like a little poem. Just be like romantic. You know what I'm saying? Tell me why you like the show. Also, there is a survey in all of the metadata and the descriptions for the show as a podcast. If you listen, fill it out. I'm curious how you listen, why you listen, where you listen. No, not really. It's not about where, but it's also like your income and Social Security. Definitely put that in. No. But truly would like to get more information from you, the listener and or viewer. Also remember that this is just 1/3 of the show. This is my favorite third. It's the most robust third. I have the most fun on this third, but you also have the bonus episodes, which are Wednesdays, that stream live 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And you have our Fantastic Fridays, or Frantastic Fridays. Last week we had Mehdi Hassan on. If you haven't watched or listened to that interview, what are you waiting for? It was great. I had to struggle to get a word in on my own show, which felt upsetting and sometimes. No, I love him. If I'm going to be interrupted by anyone, Mehdi Hassan will be the person. But so listen to that, please. And remember, if you are like, bonus show, what? How do I get? You got to become a member or a patron on YouTube, or my personal preference on Patreon. Patreon.com/bituationroom is where you go and you can get all of our back episodes. I spill tea. We do silly things. We do deep dives. I love talking about Latin American policy and politics. So that's good. Last week we did kind of a first look at this CEO who was gunned down. We did not know very much back then. But so yeah, definitely get at that. There were some like initial reactions around it. And remember, if you are a patron, know that once the show is after it goes live, so after the Wednesday show is live after about 2 p.m. Pacific, it goes only to members on YouTube, but I download the video and natively upload. So if you're like, where's the bonus? It's natively uploaded just like as soon as possible. Sometimes that soon as possible turns into like 2 or 3 hours. However, I try not to. And then, of course, it's in audio form. So you can listen at your leisure. Again, you get a cute little rainbow icon, in addition to so many different perks and reasons to become a patron of the show, supporting me and my little labor of love and the small team that works with me. All right, I'm gonna just transition. Oh, we have one more announcement, one final announcement, which is your girl's trying to do more stand-up. I'm going to be in Pasadena at the Ice House with some of my favorite comics. I'm calling it New World Disorder, a night of comedy with Francesca Fiorentini, Wednesday, January 22nd. So it's the week that Donald Trump is back in the White House. More inauguration. We'll see if Melania's there and if he hotboxes her with a massive fart the way he did, I guess, the first time. I don't know. She looked like he farted. Um, so come out to that. Ida Rodriguez, Matt Lieb, James Fritz, and Chloe Hilliard, all friends of this show who've been on, are going to be there live, 7:30 p.m. It's going to be so fun. It's just, I love the Ice House. It's like a clubby club, but like good, and like good food, weirdly. Like, how is that possible? Anyway, you guys know what to do. Get your get your bitch caps on. There's a lot we have to cover. This is What Are You Bitching About? So, this week I am not really bitching about anything in particular, but I did want to squeeze in a discussion about Syria. Maybe let's turn this into what I could be bitching about is anyone who is overly excited or overly pessimistic about the Assad regime finally falling after however many decades, right? So because it is a complicated issue. There's a lot going on. And I wanted to just break it down for everybody and sort of bitch about maybe some of the US's gleefulness that I don't particularly love. But if you didn't know, yes, the Assad regime fell. I think it was Friday or Saturday night, which means for me, I won't be trolled by Jimmy Dore saying that, I'm Al Qaeda. Uh, and, obviously because I had the audacity to call Assad a war criminal, which he was and is. He has fled now to Russia. And this is after a 12-day offensive committed by the group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS, which is like BTS, but like with real commitment, and remember that during the Syrian civil war, 500,000 Syrians were killed. 500,000 Syrians died, 2011 to 2017. Again, same images that we're seeing out of Gaza, this time, obviously, in Syria, that time in Syria. Children pulled from the rubble, children in shock, children displaced, to say nothing of the mass amount of migration, right? Because there was an opportunity to escape, unlike the open air prison that Gaza is. We also saw children washed up on beaches as they tried to flee their homes. Again, it was all because of the Arab Spring that had popped off in 2011, obviously in Tunisia, then Egypt, and then came to Syria. And the reason that it became so entrenched and it became such a proxy war is that Syria had been backed by Iran. And then Russia in 2015 entered into the war. Russia was like, look, we got bases around Syria. We need Syria strategically, the same way the United States supports Israel, and other countries. They had an entire propaganda machine. So I sort of jokingly talk about Dore, but there were many people who were on that payroll to say, hey, why don't you soft pedal Syria? Because after all, soft pedal on Assad, because after all, Assad, Hezbollah, Iran, it's sort of it's axis of resistance adjacent, at least in Assad's case, which I vehemently disagree with. So what happened was, when Russia starts an entire war with Ukraine, suddenly the patron saint of said civil war is no longer around. And so Assad, his whole ass is left hanging out, whatever it is, and he gets toppled. So that's basically what happened. It's like all of your supporters, all of your sugar daddies got mired in some other shit, and so you got toppled. And again, the Syrian rebels are by no means like angels. Nobody knows what the hell they're going to be. HTS broke off from Al Qaeda. The leader of HTS says they want to be more inclusive, but who knows? They say that their Al Qaeda past was like the old me. So take that with whatever you take it with. But for the United States' purpose, for our interests, meaning our interests, especially as leftists, as anti-war folks, as people who don't want to see more tax dollars go to kill and maim people, we should focus on Israel, really. Because since the Assad regime fell, Israel's carried out 250 strikes on Syria, airports, warehouses, military stations, all of that, right? And it is very clear that the U.S. military apparatus is taking this as a win for themselves and for their support of Israel. And here is the Zionist himself, Joe Biden, bragging about just that.
The United States will work with our partners and the stakeholders in Syria to help them seize an opportunity to manage the risks. You know, for years, the main backers of Assad have been Iran, Hezbollah, and Russia. But over the last week, their support collapsed, all three of them, because all three of them are far weaker today than they were when I took office. And let's remember why. After Hamas attacked Israel on October the 7th, 2023, when much of the world responded with horror, Iran and its proxies chose to launch a multi-front war against Israel. That was a historic mistake on Iran's part. Today, Iran's main territorial proxy, Hezbollah, is also on its back.
Right. So, yeah, the only person who is on his back is you, my guy. You are so on your back. You should be sleeping. You should be lying down instead of tooting your own horn about how you support genocidal regimes, murder of men, women, children, doctors, teachers, healthcare workers, to the tune of a very, very, very conservative 45,000 people. So, and this is, I guess I just want to briefly say, this is the problem with only looking at the Middle East through a proxy war. So my instinct when I see that Israel's attacking Syria, when I see that they're taking this as a win against Iran and how we're moving in the opposite direction when we really should be moving towards, rebrokering the Iran deal. Of course, that's going to be completely dead. We should be moving in the direction of diplomacy, is that these are real people, that the people of Syria are real people. And it's people like Biden, it's people like, unrepentant Zionists who only see, let's say, if it's the people of Syria or the people of Gaza or the people of the West Bank, they only see them as, proxy puppets for Iran or Russia or whomever. And we can say that we don't agree with Russia bombing, and murdering children in Damascus or whatnot, or in Idlib or in Aleppo or whatnot, but also say that they're not just proxies of some other organization. You know what I mean? Like that is Biden's response, is we're taking this as a win. So what? So you're fomenting World War III? What are you actually celebrating, my guy, when Israel is expanding? And here is a very weird video of Netanyahu, apparently in the Golan Heights, again, occupied by Israel since 1967, belongs to Syria. Here he is celebrating, also kind of similar to Biden. And listen, and I apologize for making you listen to this, but listen to the warning that is being issued here. And if you're watching, it does look like he's AI, but I'm pretty sure he's not.
It's a historic day for the Middle East. The collapse of the Assad regime, the tyranny in Damascus, offers great opportunity, but also is fraught with significant dangers. This collapse is a direct result of our forceful action against Hezbollah in Iran.
It's not. I'm sorry. The other thing is it's not. It really, you know what this collapse is a result of? It's Putin. It's Putin being oopsies, got overstretched. Oopsies, should not have started to invade Ukraine and screwed over my entire economy situation. Oops. It really yeah. And Iran's there. Yeah, Iran, I guess, maybe feels stretched too. But I love that this is ooh. Here's the thing. We had to just genocide and ethnically cleanse all of Gaza. They're back channeling this or reverse engineering it to make it look like that they were really trying to get Assad all the whole time. Shut up.
Assad's main supporters. It set off a chain reaction of all those who want to free themselves from this tyranny and its suppression. But it also means we have to take action against possible threats. One of them is the collapse of the Separation of Forces Agreement from 1974 between Israel and Syria. This agreement held for 50 years. Last night it collapsed. The Syrian army abandoned its positions. We gave the Israeli army the order to take over these positions to ensure that no hostile force embeds itself right next to the border of Israel.
So we had to take over these positions in order that no other hostile, we have to be the hostile force to take over positions in Syria. Okay.
This is a temporary defensive position until a suitable arrangement is found. Equally, we send a hand of peace to all those beyond our border in Syria, to the Druze, to the Kurds, to the Christians, and to the Muslims who want to live in peace with Israel.
And to even the Muslims. Look, if they want to live in peace, even the Muslims.
To all those beyond our border in Syria, to the Druze, to the Kurds, to the Christians, and to the Muslims who want to live in peace with Israel. We're going to follow events very carefully. If we can establish neighborly relations and a peaceful relations with the new forces emerging in Syria, that's our desire. But if we do not, we'll do whatever it takes to defend the state of Israel and the border of Israel.
No, wait. So you want neighborly relations? So you're going to withdraw from the Golan Heights? Is that what you're talking about? You're going to go 67 borders like international law says or whatever? You're going to no? Okay, you feel preemptively threatened by this new regime. You have no idea like what they're about. They're probably going to negotiate with you, dude. But if not, you will waste no time in you mean you've already bombed people in Damascus before in this entire year, right? I'm forgetting who they took out in Damascus, no. It was the Syrian embassy in Iran. I'm forgetting how many targeted assassinations Israel's done. But again, so you're seeing why, and why the Assad regime felt necessary to keep Israel at bay. And yet, I'm not the leftist who's going to be like, no, actually, I think we should have supported Assad. No, I don't. He's a war criminal. 500,000 people dead. Good riddance, good night, and good luck. And we'll see what happens with Assad. Before final thought, this was Matt Miller of the State Department being asked whether Assad's going to face any like ICC, trial or whatnot.
The president said yesterday that the Assad regime or Assad himself should be held accountable. Will you support his application to stand in front of the ICC as a war criminal who committed crimes against humanity?
So we support the work of the ICC. I know that obviously we have disagreed with their hold on. I'm gonna let me address it.
You support the work of the ICC until they do something about it.
So we have had a long. Let me just answer the question. You know what, Matt? Let me answer the question because I was addressing that before you interrupted me.
This is Matt on Matt violence. One more again. I love it. So obviously the journalists are laughing in Matt Miller's face because they're like, oh, you support the ICC? One, you're not a party to the ICC. Two, you are like doing a massive human shield job on preventing Netanyahu and Gallant or any Israeli from being held accountable for their war crimes. So it's fun to hear you be like, oh, we support the ICC, but we'd rather just have them drag them through the streets like Gaddafi did, and then plunge that country into the abyss of chaos. And who knows, man? From what the leaders of HTS are saying, it sounds like they do not want chaos. They're ready to be like, take over the state. And look, the fact that the United States is not that heavily involved makes me feel like maybe they've got a shot at running their own country. Because when we get involved, that's when everything goes south. But let me bring in my guest. But before I do, you guys know the holidays are here. I decorated outside. We need the cheer more than ever. But also we've got a holiday little promo from Sunset Lake CBD. They obviously can ship directly to you or your loved one if you want to gift this. And until December 22nd, everything at sunsetlakecbd.com is 25% off when you check out with the coupon code HOLIDAY. Now, you guys know it's like usually 20% off with Frantifa. No. 25% off with the code HOLIDAY. Orders over $100 qualify for free priority shipping, CBD gummy bears, and every order will get a free mystery sample, which sounds scarier than it probably is. They definitely tell. It's not like someone's going to give you weed brownies and be like, whatever, you'll see. No. You guys know I love all their products. I even like their lotion. I love their sleep gummies. I like their focus gummies. Their relax gummies have ashwagandha and reishi mushroom in it. So, who's getting goop over here? Perfect stocking stuffer, perfect for you to try. Coupon code HOLIDAY to save 25%. Now, the sale starts tomorrow. So if you're listening to me right now, it doesn't start right now. Today, if you need it today, Frantifa is your coupon code. Tomorrow, December 11th. And with that, let me bring in my guest. He's a wonderful comedian who you've seen on Jimmy Kimmel in his Mike Lindell personification. You've heard him as a voice actor on cartoons, or maybe you haven't recognized him because he's so good. And you can see him at a city near you. You can also watch his special Path of Most Resistance, which is out right now on YouTube. Please welcome James Adomian. James.
Uh-oh, hello.
Uh-oh.
How are you, Francesca?
Thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me. I was listening to your summary of the major events in Syria, and
How did you follow any of it?
Yeah, I did. I'm following all of it, and I realized that you took the bullet, so to speak, in stand-up terminology, with the least funny topic of the day.
Yes, we deliberately thought, you know what? Let's be chill with James. This is his first time. We'll lift that very dry segment and lead with it, because I was going to be like, well, what's funny? Like, what would you take from the presidential palace were we to eventually overthrow the U.S. government, as people are looting Assad's palace and his many cars? He had a lot of luxury cars.
Well, yeah, you got to have cars if you're running I don't know, the transit system wasn't great, but but yeah, it remains to be seen if the Turkish-backed HTS will take a break from history and not go after the Armenian population in the cities they take over.
Well, yeah,
it might be a historical first chance for them to not commit crimes against humanity against the Armenians and other Christians in those cities.
And they've said, like, they want to be inclusive. They're like trying to, represent all sects. But tell me, because you are Armenian, you have spoken out a lot about, obviously, not just the historic, but current mistreatment of ethnic minorities, of Armenians in so many different countries. But so I didn't know that, like, the Armenian population in Syria.
Well, including Armenians, before the Civil War, Syria was 10% Christian.
Right.
And that's not all Armenian, that's other ethnicities as well. But whenever the different Turkish-backed factions came into a city over the last more than a decade, one of the first things they do is, like, kill whatever Armenians they can, or push them out, destroy the churches, And I'm not even a Christian. This is a fun thing for me to do, to speak up from the left wing about Christian issues. But so, here in America, all the right wing Christians don't care about Christians in Middle Eastern countries.
No, they don't. It's true.
They're like, go ahead. They don't speak our language, so they don't matter.
Right.
But
no, Turkey is not a good patron. Like, replacing one patron with another.
Yeah, Erdogan is a terrible dictator himself in Turkey, and Assad's not a great guy. It's going to be better off without him, you think. But what they really need is, organic protections within the country, and not like being bullied by their terrible neighbors that they have there.
Right.
Hopefully peace can come to not only Syria, but all the neighboring countries in the region. And I mean real peace. I don't mean like a dictatorship where, you're pushing people around and your ethnicity wins. I mean, like, real shared prosperity.
Yeah.
But that's,
Amen.
I mean,
hey,
I can say that, but boy, oh boy, doesn't it seem like it's far away?
Yeah, including in this country, although I guess we do have some meddlers as well. But I wanted to ask you, what are you bitching about? That's how we start off every show, even though we've started the show. But when a guest comes in, what are you bitching about today, James Adomian?
So yes, I have a lighter topic of a complaint, which I have been enjoying, is it's not a complaint so much as just like I'm embracing it with reservations, is the coming civil war in this country. You know, and I love this pivot from an overseas civil war to the one coming here. And there's people that romantically think that the second American Civil War is going to be like romantic, like the Ken Burns documentary. Mm-hmm. It is going to look more like the Civil War that just happened in Syria. I'm sorry to say. Unless some visionary, charismatic people steer us away from what seems more and more likely. It's not going to be like brother against brother, and weren't we so shaking hands and honoring each other from across the battlefield? It'll be like cities turned into powder.
I think we should have a civil war. I'd be okay with it if we can only use the technology that was around during our first civil war.
Well, that was bad enough. That was half a million people died.
Exactly. So, and we have to dress like them. We have to, it's basically just a reenactment, but for realsies. I mean, we're actually just still in the fallout of the first civil war in this country. It's kind of how it's always been.
If you notice, 150 years later, how we didn't really heal from that. It just kind of stopped. It kind of paused.
I mean, what's interesting about the Syrian civil war that's like different, like the amount of civilians that were targeted simply because they had the misfortune of living in a city where there were rebels is like wild to me. To like think that your whole apartment building could get bombed because you've got a pussy hat wearing crew that doesn't believe in MAGA.
I think that the great formula, the blueprint that we're looking at for the emerging events in the future late unpleasantness of the Second American Civil War is the great movie that came out earlier this year. And it's great to talk about this at the end of this year. There was a fantastic prophetic movie preview for the Civil War movie. Yeah, it was a searing, prophetic, very intelligent movie preview. No one bothered to watch the movie. No one needed to, because the movie preview really was more intelligent than anything I know in my own brain. I cannot stop thinking about the prediction in the beginning of the preview for the Civil War movie. The announcement from the president in the movie where he's going, the Western forces of Texas and California have made progress. That is more true than any truth that any of us are living through. A future civil war where Texas and California are on the same side.
Yes.
Whatever.
Wait, are you talking about? Was that your Offerman, by the way?
I was trying not to name him. Yeah. We're
talking about Civil War. I saw that because it was the last movie I saw in the theater. It was for. That was in May because we went for Matt's birthday. It was great, and
there's nothing I like more than Texas and California on the same side. And I think whatever politics we're living through now, it will be altered radically to fulfill that prophecy. And we will have a faction of Texas, the Western forces of Texas and California. But that's not all. We're going to have so many other factions to choose from that we don't even notice yet. If you're anywhere near Chicago, Oprah will be the leader of like a militia faction. She'll be like, you get an AK-47, you get an AK-47, you get an AK-47. If you're a sports fan, they could split off into like armed factions. Pro wrestling tag teams will start to become like major power players in the emerging Civil War. And I think, as always, the meanest ones, like the Samoan SWAT team, are the ones that are going to be the most powerful.
SWAT, like doing the haka and stuff.
The meanest, roughest, and arguably most attractive of the wrestling tag teams. But I have always thought of myself as a patriotic American. If it comes down to it, if I have to side with some emergent faction in this new future, I've decided that I'm going to side with the militia faction in the future Civil War of the East End boys and West End girls. They're together now. They're together now. They set aside their problems. The East End boys and West End girls. And if you're thinking, James, you're off. You're crazy. That's a British pop song from the 80s. I know. I'm ahead of the game here, because if there's an American Civil War, Netflix will put out a movie faster than you think it's possible with a 100% British cast playing Americans. And you'll be able to tell if you're listening closely that they're British actors because their American accents will be too perfect. They'll be like, I don't appreciate what you're doing to my country. What do you mean your country? How do you know it's not my country? And you're like, the American accent is too perfect. You can tell that you're goddamn Brits.
Yeah, we're more slack-jawed than that. Ryan Murphy's already working on a pre-Civil War. I mean, that's the other thing. It's just like we've seen it in the movies. Here's the thing. I love it. I disagree, and I'm going to get to why we disagree in our final segment, which I'm calling "Kiss the Ring," which I'll show you. There is no one leading these forces. There's no one leading said forces. But before we do that, let's get to. We have one major story because it's the story of the week. This is the week where, let's face it. The killer of the UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson has been nabbed in a McDonald's in Pennsylvania. His name is Luigi Mangione. He is 26 years old, and he absolutely definitely knew what he was doing and why he was doing it. And we'll get into that. But here he is being taken from. I believe he's being extradited to New York, and here he is being carried by the police, and he's screaming at cameras that he knows around him. And he said, this is a disgrace to the American people and their lived experience.
And it's completely out of touch, and it's an insult to the intelligence of the American people. It's a lived experience.
This is clearly out of touch with the American people. It's an insult to their lived experience. Okay, so what might he be referencing? Possibly the fact that not a lot of people see him as the enemy, because he did in fact take out a horrible human being who's responsible for denying many, many healthcare claims of many sick Americans. And I just want to, before I kick it to you, James, he was apprehended on Monday on suspicion again, we don't know, but likely, since he had a manifesto of killing CEO Brian Thompson, found with his manifesto. 2 lines in it read, "These parasites had it coming. I do apologize for any strife and trauma, but it had to be done." There was more from, in fact, we now have the entire manifesto, but here's from the New York Times. It notes that UnitedHealthcare market's capitalization has grown. American life expectancy has not. To save you a lengthy investigation, I state plainly that I wasn't working with anyone, he wrote. The note condemns companies that, quote, continue to abuse our country for immense profit because the American public has allowed them to get away with it. And given that his name is Luigi Mangione, here is what one Twitter user thought his manifesto would look like when he was writing it. That's the Italian Luigi Mangione writing there. And of course, the memes are lit. The memes are dank. Here's someone tweeting, "He struck fear into the heart of predatory CEOs everywhere is what he did. And in this house, Luigi Mangione is a hero." End of story. With, of course, Tony Soprano. And I just want to say, James, as someone with a comically Italian name, even though I'm only half, if I ever do anything like this and become a folk hero of sorts, the memes mocking my Italian name are going to be insane.
It's been fascinating in the last week following this. It's too bad he got caught, frankly. I think good props to Luigi in many ways. And I'm not necessarily a big fan of violent acts, but I'm also not like a huge critic of how this played out. There's a lot of things wrong in the world. What he did is far from the worst thing that happened in recent times. And I think that, frankly, Mario's got to step up his game based on how Luigi has performed.
Seriously,
Luigi's score
always number 2 guy, but
Yep, on the race course, on the Mario Kart race course, Luigi is way ahead right now of all the other competitors, and Mario's got to step it up.
Yeah. Toad, what are you doing for the class war?
I am also unimpressed. I'm like, I was looking for an excuse to have less McDonald's in my life. He was caught at somebody ratted him out at a McDonald's, and it's like, Jesus Christ, like what the fuck? Thanks, Grimace. You're a snitch.
Yes. Okay, so there is a lot more here. What we know also about him was that he was like comes from a rich family, super blue blood, prominent family in Baltimore who are known for businesses including country clubs, nursing homes, a radio station. The suspect's paternal grandparents, Nicholas and Mary Mangione, were real estate developers who purchased Turf Valley Country Club in 1978 and another country club in 86. Shortly after the suspect was charged, Republican state lawmaker Nino Mangione, believed to be Mr. Mangione's cousin, released a statement saying the family was shocked and devastated. So he apparently was also his valedictorian.
Yeah.
He is, yeah.
Here's what I would say to that is that people are surprised, like, what? He has a prominent capitalist family, and many of them are Republicans, so they're wealthy. Yeah, sometimes there's class traders. And if you have a wealthy, powerful family, once in a while, it's not a majority of your kids, but one out of a certain number of them are actually going to be smart enough free thinkers that they're going to go learn their own thing.
Yeah.
And he's not a left-wing guy either. He's sort of like politically hard to pin down based on what people are talking about his posts, where he's sometimes libertarian or sometimes anarchist, depending on if he's in a left-wing or right-wing mood. And but he's definitely like what you would call a free thinker, not free thinker as well in the way that the alt-right or the Twitter Nazis refer to themselves as free thinkers, but you can always predict what that means, what they're going to believe.
Yeah.
Like this guy actually like made up his own thoughts and plans about what to do about the slowly and perhaps rapidly crumbling American civilization that we all
Yeah. And I just want to like mention, like, you know, there is this narrative out there that like the left is celebrating and supposedly the left and And then you have people like, you know, Ben Shapiro screeching about how the left this, the left that. And then you look at the comments in Shapiro's videos and they're all his followers saying it's not just the left. This guy had it coming. Healthcare is ridiculous. I mean, not really this guy had it coming, but basically like it's not just the left, not just the left. Who's going to tell Ben it's not just the left?
Right.
And so you're like, okay, this is to your point about not really being an ideology, and him being kind of like all over the place. It's like, yeah, man, a lot of people are pissed off about healthcare in this country and
There's
feel
current, yes, it's the kind of thing. This is what major corporations, especially major healthcare corporations and the people who run them, are very unpopular across multiple swaths of the political spectrum.
Yep.
You know, it's going to get pinned on the left by the incoming Trump administration. This will probably be, they'll falsely claim that this was organized. They're going to, you know, they're about to fabricate a bunch of fake left-wing quote unquote terrorism.
Yes.
And so they're going to use this as an example of why we need to crack down on legitimate democratic institutions in this country.
Of course. I mean, it's the same way that supposedly the left was, you know, tried to kill Donald Trump. And it's like, nah, man.
That guy was also like a weirded out right-wing kid.
Yeah.
He was like pro-Trump and right-wing right up until he decided to take a shot at the guy.
But was he this hot?
Yeah,
I mean,
the guy's hot.
Jesus.
Let's face it. I just watched the Queer film with Daniel Craig, and Mr. Luigi Mangione looks like he could have had
a bit part.
A fun subplot in that universe. Yes.
Okay, so this is Ken Klippenstein's Substack, who actually got the whole manifesto, and I just wanted to read a little bit more of it, which is honestly could just be a Bernie speech. A reminder, the U.S. has the #1 most expensive healthcare system in the world, yet we rank roughly number 42 in life expectancy. The United is the, I guess he handwrote it, so it's wrote it, so it's indecipherable, largest company in the U.S. by market cap, behind only Apple, Google, and Walmart. It's grown and grown, but has our life expectancy? No, the reality is these indecipherable have simply gotten too powerful, and they continue to abuse our country for immense profit.
It does. You mentioned it's a funny joke that you said that it sounds like Bernie Sanders. And there was a clip I saw on Instagram of this hilarious comic. He's in New York, Jordan Fisher, who did a whole stand-up bit where he says at the end, I don't want to spoil it, but it's a funny short bit where he says like, actually the guy was going to he thought the guy was going to take his mask off, and it would be like a Scooby-Doo reveal that it was actually Bernie Sanders.
Amazing. Also, why you got to moonlight as an Italian? That's messed up. But okay, it's more than just random rich kid gets politicized by the healthcare industry. It's how possibly. Now, this was his Twitter bio, like his cover, in your header, and it's some Pokemon character I don't know, because I don't know my Pokemon characters. Him hiking, showing all of his abs. I don't know how many, but there's a lot. And then the middle photo is an x-ray of his back. And as someone who has some like, shit in my back and my shoulders and my arms, and I've gotten treatment for that, looking at someone with bolts in their spine, at the base of their spine, is truly hard to look at.
Yeah.
This was clearly part of his life, was being someone who actually suffered with back pain. And so we know that he suffered with back pain, that he was a surfer, that he couldn't surf. He lived, I believe, in Honolulu for like 6 months, and they knew him as a guy who had terrible back problems and couldn't surf anymore. Can I
interject and say to have these kinds of back problems and to be that physically hot, that's a very impressive thing. Usually major injuries take you out of the gym pretty quickly.
They really do. And exactly.
Something.
He found something. I mean, right. But you do need a strong core to support the back. But it's true that usually when you have chronic ailments, usually aren't able to like move around as much.
Hats off. I know he's going to be suppressed, and we have these unfair court systems that we pretend are free here in this country. He's going to definitely be forcibly muzzled and shut up and not allowed to talk, but I kind of want to hear his fitness tips.
He's going to start a personal training app from prison.
Yeah, I hope they don't shut him up and they let him speak on some political ideas that he might have, and also sort of like just advice to.
Is this our Joe Rogan of the left? Is that what you're trying to say?
The prophecies are true.
So he apparently also had read things about the back pain industry. This was like according to his Goodreads list. Someone with his same name, Back Mechanic by Dr. Stuart McGill. He also, I think, gave the Kaczynski book manifesto like a good review. And this is from Prem Tacker at Zeteo, sort of reminding us about who he killed, which is Brian Thompson. Thompson, along with other higher-ups, allegedly conducted insider trading. They sold millions of dollars of stock upon learning the Department of Justice opened an antitrust investigation into United Health. While the company was on an upward profit swing, it has been awash in allegations and revelations of limiting mental health care coverage via the algorithm, denying healthcare services needed after hospitalization at drastic rates via artificial intelligence, and denying insurance claims at a starkly high rate. I think it was something like 30% to 30% of all claims compared to 6% from other companies.
That's a good thing to point out too, among many other things to be discussed. And I'm glad to be talking about this too with you, because the television discussion is, of course, on TV news, every possible wrong opinion about this.
Right.
And there's anything outside of the mandated quasi legally enforced narrative is just simply not allowed on television. But the company is a terrible company, UnitedHealthcare, and it's a very powerful, wealthy company inside of a deliberately corrupt industry that has dumped money into stopping American political progress because they like making people sick and injured and mentally ill and not live as long so that they can make more money.
Yep.
And it's not just them, it's almost every other healthcare corporation, all the big ones. The guy was bad. And someone posted a quote from Mark Twain, and I don't have it in front of me, but Mark Twain had written about this in a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court, that we're horrified at the terrorism of the French Revolution, but we're never horrified at like the long-term terror of way more dead bodies that has piled up and led to that incident.
Yes, absolutely.
And so we have this.
I mean, it's the Eddie Izzard bit, right? Of like, you know, you kill one people, you're a murderer. You kill, you know, millions. It's like, congratulations, sir. Wow.
Exactly. We have this weird, like agreed upon reality where we just don't think of certain murders as murders.
Right. And one of those, and before we move on, and the reason I really wanted to just talk about this story is because there's so many interesting angles, but there is some amount of discussion of vigilante violence that is allowed on mainstream news, and that is when it's vigilante violence committed against poor people or people of color or people who are protesting in the streets, a la Kyle Rittenhouse. And so briefly, this is like what's being talked about in on CNN by this right-wing douchebag. I don't know his name.
Let me just help you understand. If you're on the American left tonight, here's my chart. The good guys today, Daniel Penny. The bad guys, Luigi Mangione. It seems to me.
How do you?
Everybody
what's
on the
the
left,
chart for victims?
I'm just telling you what I see out in the world.
I know.
Today.
I just want you to finish the chart.
Ooh, good chart there.
What he was telling us, that's what we should believe.
Right. That he's basically, yeah, it's very simple. Daniel Penny, good. Luigi Mangione, bad. Now, who is Daniel Penny?
What a stupid guy. What a stupid guy. What a dumb person. His brain doesn't work correctly. I don't know what his name is, the right-wing commentator there, but he got it backwards deliberately. And you know, the Luigi was not a left-wing guy. He's just sort of maybe like Darth Vader decided to do something good at the very end.
Take out one. So this is the thing about Daniel Penny, right? Daniel Penny is a former military. He was on a New York City subway, and street performer Jordan Neely, who was a Michael Jackson impersonator who had been in the, you know, busking scene for a very long time, was having a mental breakdown in an episode, and for 6 minutes, Penny held him in a chokehold until he was dead. And a jury of 12 people just convicted him. Just acquitted him. Completely acquitted him. And so you're seeing things, not just obviously on CNN, but on Fox News, the whiplash with who we venerate when they kill someone we think doesn't deserve to live is wild.
We'll dig into it later. The Instagram posts from nutbag people, which I was sent in the commercial break earlier, crazy. Like, he's cute, and people celebrating this. This is a sickness. Honestly, it's so disappointing, but I guess we shouldn't be surprised. Gentlemen, thank you so much. And up next, the other big news out of New York, Daniel Penny. A lot of people think he's a hero, and tonight he's not guilty. My take next.
A lot of people think he's a hero.
Yeah, it's Laura Ingraham, right? Is that
Ingraham?
Laura or Laura? I don't know which one it is. She's also doesn't think correctly. These right-wing sickos from Fox News and other right-wing institutions, they love violence. They cheer for violence, and my entire life they've done this. You tune in, catch up what they're talking about. They're always advocating some violence against some oppressed people overseas or in our country, and they cheer for it, and they call themselves correct heroes and gloat when they win and when they do commit violence. And one of many examples is Kyle Rittenhouse arming himself and going and deliberately attacking peaceful protesters. That kind of thing happens all over American politics at different times, where right-wing lunatics go and attack left-wing nonviolent protesters, or even just go spray bear spray in the faces of people in Portland, Oregon who look
or
liberal.
Themselves. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And
the dissonance, we're not supposed to point it out. You know, we're not supposed to point out the similarities or how desensitized we are to some of this vigilante murder and how desensitized we are to gun violence. And when the New York Post has exactly this, target CEOs, the chilling manifesto, it's not fucking chilling. We just told you it was a run-of-the-mill Bernie Sanders speech. And on the right, enough is enough. Daniel Penny not guilty. Yay.
That image right there is very telling. The New York Post, and it's a great summary that should be taught in the future after the American Civil War. That the New York Post, a lunatic right-wing idiot magazine, on the front page says left-wing guy who killed someone bad, right-wing guy who killed someone good.
Yep.
And that's going to be the establishment narrative, because there are no left-wing billionaires.
Yep.
So the right wing owns the media, and then the centrist media collapses to them all the time. So
Right. And
that's
we're
going
gonna
to
look
be
at
the
that.
major neighbor. That's going to be the narrative. And no one brings up in the mainstream media that the vast majority of political violence in this country is committed by right wing
Yes.
actors.
Yes.
Far more than any
Far
left-wing
more.
violence or any religious violence. The vast majority is right-wing violence, but it doesn't get covered that way. Anything that could possibly be penned on the left is covered out of proportion to the actual statistics. I'm not making this up. I'm one of
No.
the few people who remembers to say it, because unfortunately I have the problem where I can't forget things that I read.
How dare you? Yes, unlike most Americans who have
The right wing in
memory hole
America
things.
is far more violent, and their violence is far less publicized. So they keep getting away with it.
Right. And also don't blame, look, it's not leftists so-called who are celebrating this. It really is people who are not celebrating, but you know what I mean? Who are like, damn, dude, like I'm like, who are crassly and fairly glib about it. It's because we all pay too much for healthcare. We've all been snubbed. We've all been on hold while like our medication that we desperately need tomorrow has been withheld from us. We've all had it, or we've been bankrupt, or we've had relatives kill themselves, because they didn't want to bankrupt our families. Like it's on and on and on. And we're just supposed to kind of deal with it. And so it is really, I said it on Friday, it's socialism or barbarism, baby. And we've said it a million times.
And the right wing is driving this country into a civil war. They want it. You look at right wing social media and they fantasize about it, from Elon Musk all the way down.
Yeah.
It's one of their favorite memes, because that's how they think they can punish people who are smarter than them, or just don't believe their bullshit. They want a civil war, and whether that happens or not, parallel to that, they also want fantastic splintering between fantastically rich and very poor. They want the top 1% of the top 1% to keep getting vastly more wealthy than everybody else. So this country is dying, not because it's too far left, but because it's too far right. And that goes back, I could talk about this for an hour. NAFTA was a right-wing thing that the Democrats, it was a Republican idea that half the Democratic Party collapsed and supported, but the entire Republican Party supported it, and half the Democrats supported it. NAFTA is a right-wing program, and there's many things like that. This country is being destroyed economically and socially by right-wing violence and right-wing stupidity.
Speak on it. We have to move on.
There, it turns out that's a rant.
Exactly, that's the rant. We gotta get into this, because between Haktua girls, meme coin going under, and Donald Trump, I guess this week with all of his friends in like some crypto gala in Abu Dhabi or some crap. We got to talk about crypto. We got to talk about the rise of crypto, and how it's not the rise, just how it's hanging around, the hang around of crypto, with researcher, software engineer, and writer who focuses on the cryptocurrency industry, blockchains, Web3, and tech. She's created projects like Web3 is Going Great, which is awesome, and Follow the Crypto, and also writes a newsletter, Citations Needed. Please welcome Molly White back to the stream.
Hey.
Hi. Welcome. This is James.
Hello.
Molly.
Hi.
Molly, I have to put up your I don't know when did you start your Follow the Crypto site?
Earlier this year. It was sort of mid-year, I think. I started really paying attention to it and wanted to dig in a little deeper, and so I created the website.
Okay, and if you're listening, so cryptocurrency focused political action committees have raised now more than $197 million to influence the 2024 election. They have spent more than $133 million of it so far. And that's not even really Elon money. But so you track you're tracking these these races, these tight races, and obviously Bernie Moreno in the Senate was a huge one. What is that? 72 more than 72,000 or no, 40, was that 40 million?
Yeah.
That is I can't read it, but like we are off the backs of like the Sam Bankman-Fried indictment, and like we're in a moment where it was like, well, hasn't crypto been proven to be really a scam? And suddenly the crypto super PAC idea that like felt like, oh my God, in 2022 it was everywhere. Now in 2023 it was like, oh, okay, kind of went, down surge, Bitcoin tanked and whatnot. And now in 2024 it just completely came surging back, and including Kamala Harris embraced the crypto industry. What happened?
Yeah, I mean, I get that question a lot, because there was this sort of feeling like crypto's over, crypto's dead, we don't have to worry about it anymore, which really was not the case during the most recent election cycle. They put this really intense political campaign on, where they not only spent over $100 million on various congressional races, but they also had this entire PR campaign behind it, where they were really trying to get out and convince politicians and various candidates in various races that they had to sign on to the crypto agenda or else, pretty much. They would sort of tempt people with the promise of potentially millions of dollars to fund their campaigns, but there was also this opposition spending that was happening against candidates like Katie Porter in California.
Yes.
Which was, they did it very early on, and they used it to send a message to other candidates to say, if you oppose crypto, we're going to come out in force against you. And
it's really like the AIPAC crypto like story like of this election is really like Israel money, crypto money.
Yeah, well, and actually in a number of races we saw the crypto PAC spending very tightly with AIPAC. That was happening in the Jamal Bowman race, in the Cori Bush race. So I think there's some sort of shared goals among those two groups.
What is the goal for the crypto industry?
Yeah, so the crypto industry has been battling with regulators for a number of years. And I should really emphasize that the top contributors to these super PACs are, Coinbase. There's Andreesen Horowitz, the venture capital group that is heavily invested in crypto. There's Ripple, which is another cryptocurrency company. If you go down the list, I mean, there's maybe 10 companies that have contributed notable amounts of money. The vast majority of them are in active legal battles with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Coinbase is, Ripple has been for 4 years now. And so the goal is really to do away with those lawsuits, to ideally remove the Securities and Exchange Commission as the primary regulator of the cryptocurrency industry. But if not, to install friendly regulators to head the agencies, and to install politicians who are likely to pass bills that have not necessarily seen much success in Congress to date. We've seen crypto bills proposed in Congress, and it's been pretty split down party lines. Now they're hoping, well, we've bought all these politicians, hopefully we can get things past the finish line now.
I mean, that's what's crazy. Like, I'm not sure if the SEC head can be just knocked out like that. Do you know? Oh, they can. Okay, lovely. Awesome.
Yeah,
so we're like, it's funny to like, why isn't Elon the head of the SEC? Just like he's got he's got cases with them.
Yeah.
He should be the head.
Well, yeah, there was some question around, because Trump made a very flashy promise that he was going to fire the SEC chairman on day one. And there was some question over whether or not technically he could do that. But the reality is, the norm is that when the administration changes, the SEC chair steps down, and that's what's happening this time. Even if he had, decided to go against all norms and stay at the SEC, Trump could have demoted him basically and had the same effect. So they are instead installing a former SEC commissioner who is relatively establishment as far as some of the Trump picks have gone. You know, he's not the Pete Hegseth, Matt Gaetz type of person. He's a lawyer. He has SEC experience, but like he has been pro deregulation, pro crypto. He's been on a crypto advisory board for, you know, almost a decade now. So they've basically installed. Yeah. So yeah, exactly.
He got in basically ground floor.
If there's any opportunity to interject,
yes.
Sorry, obviously
Elon
Molly and Francesca, that the question was asked why Elon Musk would not want to be the chair of the Securities Exchange Commission, and I just think that it's one of the things we're like looking at as something that could be like Trey cool. Yeah, but the first thing we would do, obviously, would be to make a very impactful move to change the name so that instead of SEC, try to sell it with like sex, and maybe we try to call it something like SEX XX. So
yeah, definitely 3 X's. That's a great move, sir. That's that's funny.
Securities and Exchange Existence. You know, just to like blow everybody's minds, and then it'll just be a way for me to continue dumping Dogecoin on people, and like we'll be really easy on all the like craziest, most destructive cryptocurrencies, but like will be like hard for some reason on any one of the random ones that happen to be like kind of like less pollutants.
Right, like Haktua and the meme coin. Well, that's what's interesting is like, you know, well, thank you, Elon, for weighing in. I'm excited for.
Oh, sure. I'll just be here monitoring your broadcast and jump in as I will the next 5 years, obviously, as the unofficial president of this country.
Oh my God, so good. Well, that's what's interesting is like it truly, like I've said this before, this election really isn't about like, oh, whether like industry has won or like whether the billionaires have won. No, they've won. They've been winning. It's which billionaires are going to be in the room. So which crypto will be allowed to flourish and which won't. So yes, it's ridiculous to me that, I mean, the Doge movement to like name Department of, you know, what is it? Government efficiency. That is ultimately just a fucking branding exercise.
Right.
To also sell. Elon still got his coin. Is that correct?
Are you talking about Dogecoin?
Yeah, Dogecoin. Is that still a thing?
I don't know if it's ever been like explicitly confirmed that Elon owns noticeable amounts of Doge. He definitely loves the joke, but
it won't be, or that'll never be confirmed, Molly. We have like we're spending like billions and billions of Doge to mask any sort of like interest that I have in it. Beyond just me like I'm obviously posting about it and trying to get people to buy into it and lose money. But of course, there's never going to be any. There's so many like shadow wallets that I control. Got, like,
just the way that like you wanted to turn Twitter or X into just like a nonpartisan space, like a space for free speech.
Yeah,
right?
A nonpartisan free speech platform where I can advocate for my party and stop other people from speaking. Like. It's just the same thing we're doing with Dogecoin and the SCXXXX, you know, it's just like, it's like the new public space to speak freely and have free commerce as long as you agree completely with what I'm doing.
I wanted to ask you because, not you, Elon, but you, Molly, because you talked about Coinbase, which if people don't know, it's the trading platform where this is where I end, but like crypto is traded. So my question about is that they got kind of hurt over some of your reporting. In fact, our very own Paige, who's a journalist as well, used your sourcing, and they got mad. They like phoned her up and were like, "Don't listen to Molly," and she's like,
"Really?
What? What's going?" Yes, truly, this happened.
That's crazy.
So what kind of heat are you getting from your reporting?
Yeah, Coinbase was not delighted with some of the research that I did a little bit earlier this year about some of those campaign contributions that they were making to the super PACs, namely that a large portion of that money appears to have been donated illegally in violation of basically campaign finance laws against federal contractors making campaign contributions.
Because Coinbase has a federal contract?
Yeah. Afraid so. Yeah. So they basically long story short, but the U.S. government seizes Bitcoin and other crypto assets that are, involved in law enforcement activities. So, if someone steals a bunch of Bitcoin and they, hacking a crypto exchange and the government is able to catch them, they might end up taking custody of that Bitcoin. And then as legal proceedings are ongoing,
so they do like
like
weekends.
a child. Yeah, right.
Weekends at Hakua and weekdays.
Right. Precisely.
I don't know, it's Sam Bankman's house. Okay, keep going.
And so, and as the legal proceedings go on, they have to hang on to that, and then eventually it's forfeited and sold off. But in that interim period, it is sometimes challenging to sort of safely hold on to cryptocurrencies. That's sort of why they get stolen all the time. And so there is a federal contract with Coinbase that is in charge of taking custody and sort of securing the government's Bitcoin and other crypto assets.
Oh, interesting. So they could also just seize all of the Bitcoin. No, I'm kidding. I understand what you're laying out.
Right.
Well,
but because
kidding,
of
but
that,
that's like one of our great plans, Francesca. Keep all the Bitcoin.
Because of that, Coinbase is considered a federal contractor. They hold a federal contract. They're making millions of dollars off of this contract. And so they are supposed to be prohibited from making campaign contributions because of pay-to-play laws, meaning that, contractors are not supposed to be donating to political causes because they might be basically buying their way into more favorable contract terms and things like that. Yeah. But Coinbase was not thrilled with my reporting on that and sort of denied the allegations through sort of a weird, I think they're like, we found a loophole, except I don't think it's actually a loophole, but remains to be seen what will come from that.
Well, this week, and we didn't do our Orange Man Bad segment. I apologize, y'all. It's been a lot of a week, but same horror show of the Trump administration rolls on, and it seems like their new crypto czar / AI czar. It'll be crypto and AI in the same thing, which I don't know how Elon feels about that, but is David Sachs. David Sachs, by the way, was a huge Trump booster. He had like a fundraiser where it was like $50,000 tickets, $300,000 tier, including a photo with Trump. He's affiliated with the PayPal mafia, which again is like the tech.
Peter Thiel.
This Peter Thiel, Musk. Like this dude basically bought himself a position. So it's funny, like obviously it is illegal. If you have a government contract, then you're raising money on behalf of these candidates. But also like everyone in Trump's administration so far has basically bought their position.
LOL, I think LOL, that's how I feel about it. Laugh out loud. Like artificial intelligence mixed with cryptocurrencies, like exactly. Doge is not just going to be something that people are trading here and there as a laugh. It's going to be a sentient creature that you will bow down to, that I will control. It is going to be, if you've ever seen The Wizard of Oz, the projection, that's going to be the projection that you will all bow down to with flames on the side of him. And he will be named Doge. And I will have you all bowing down and worshiping an avatar that I control. It's going to be really fantastic, really free.
Oh, God, I can't wait for Doge when it's sucking you off, Elon, to malfunction and just rip the whole thing.
It is. That is the only kind of polyamory that we support. Is one that takes place in the blockchain. So, yeah.
Stop moving like him. It's upsetting.
Wow. So cool.
But yeah, so yeah, I mean, there's all these characters, Molly, that since the last time you've been on, now we know these Horowitz and Sachs and who's the other guy? Marc Andreesen and Sam Altman. We talked about, he's like really excited about, working with the Trump administration to beat China at AI. And there's just these ghouls, these tech crypto ghouls. And ultimately all they're doing is playing a longer Haktua curve out. I mean, correct?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
And I say the Haktua is in reference to the fact that, Haktua Girl started a meme coin, basically her own cryptocurrency. It lost 90% of its value. And a bunch of people are like, I can't believe I was duped. You're like, really?
Yeah, I mean, there is this sort of there's kind of this running joke in the crypto world about the Andreesen Horowitz curve, which is this pattern where venture capitalists will back a crypto project. They'll get a whole pile of crypto tokens before anyone else is able to buy them. The company will launch usually with a bunch of fanfare about the fact that they are backed by Andreesen Horowitz, which is, sort of a legitimizing factor for a lot of potential speculators. And then people will buy a bunch of the token, and the token will suddenly crash in a very similar way to the Haktua token. And, it certainly looks a lot like insiders selling off very early to cash out. And it's kind of the venture capitalist dream, right? Because like if you're a venture capitalist and you're investing in a more traditional company, it's a long wait. You have to, you put all this money in, you sit on the board, you do all this stuff, you try to help the company grow. Like eventually it hopefully IPOs, and that's when you make a killing, but that can be years and years down the line. But with crypto, you can sell immediately. Like there's no rules. It doesn't matter. And you can make a ton of money. And so, I think that's really been a big part of the strategy for a lot of these investment folks.
Well, that's like one interesting theory you have, Molly, about the collapse of the Haktua crypto. But obviously there's some other factors that may have happened because, a lot of us are looking at her and talk to a girl and saying like, well, we'd like to enter that space and perhaps help with some of our investments. And so I'm standing on the sidelines, obviously, when offer has been made and rejected, but I'm still offering some of my elite, fantastic billionaire level semen, like I've been offering to a lot of other people. And we're just waiting for the Haktua girl to approve that transaction. This is like fantastic semen that's ready to colonize the stars. And I've already on this planet had 13.55 children. And so totally if the offer is accepted, then you might see Haktua like rivaling Doge as perhaps.
If not, you'll probably just you've got a few horses on offer. Is that, I understand?
This will be a pantheon, you see, different cryptocurrencies. It will be a new right-wing pantheon that you will all bow down to of artificial intelligences that have blockchains attached to them. Haktua, Doge, they will be your next sun god and moon god.
And again, if nothing else, you will offer them a horse for sex. We know how you.
We know how this is, and sometimes if they say no, you just leave the horse head on their bed as like, oh, you missed out.
Colonize the stars, intelligences. I can't with you. But Molly, just talk about Trump a little bit. Like, let's say Kamala Harris had won. Oh, our world! How quickly our world has changed. And everything would have been fine and normal because crypto would have gone away. No, JK, she also embraced crypto. But is Trump like, how bad is this? Like, how bad could it get, especially when it comes to like what are you worried about or looking for? I'm just looking at a couple of like Guardian headlines about like the loosening of regulations on crypto, what it could mean for like illegal, extremist organizations or, all kinds of nefarious groups or whatever.
Yeah, I think a lot really remains to be seen. You're right that Kamala Harris made some sort of vague statements towards the end of her campaign about cryptocurrency, but they were kind of a sort with the types of statements we were seeing from a lot of candidates who were again reacting to this PR campaign out of the crypto industry and trying to just sort of hedge their bets a little bit.
Right. I ended up scared of having money spent against them. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. And so I didn't really read that much into it. I do think that Harris might have, broadly speaking, been a bit of a friendlier ally to the tech industry broadly. But she was not, doing the Trump version of things, which was, he was headlining the Bitcoin conference in July. He was promising, a Bitcoin stockpile for, which would effectively do nothing other than to pump the price of Bitcoin. He was promising to fire Gary Gensler and install. He literally said, we want the rules for your industry to be written by people who love crypto. So it was very blatant. And I think we're likely to see some of that come true. Although I think with Trump, it's always a question of how many of his promises will ultimately be given, attention later on. He seems like a sort of distractible man, but, especially
not when he can make a profit. I mean, we make fun of it, but he and Melania had NFTs.
Well, and he has his own crypto token now, which was launched like a month before the election. And so he stands to make a killing off of paring back these regulations. Obviously, that will go well for the crypto industry and all of his crypto backers. So I think we're likely to see this push for deregulation. And I'm curious to see how far it goes, how successful it is once it ends up in Congress. But I am very concerned about the sort of legitimization of the crypto industry, the lack of any consumer protections by, reducing the enforcement abilities of the financial regulators, and also potentially just like replacing the regulators with allies of the industry. And then I'm really concerned about potential contagion to the rest of the finance world,
Right.
which is a really big deal and something that I think we really need to worry about.
Well, I'm not smart enough to understand how that happens, but I am smart enough to understand that I feel like in our lifetime, we will be told that we must bail out the cryptocurrency because it's too volatile to fail. Like, I feel like in this awful timeline we're on, Molly, at some point, someone will implore the American people, well, look, we have to keep Doge afloat. We have to keep Bitcoin afloat. Otherwise, everything goes under.
I think that's a real risk. I think that is really one of the goals of the crypto industry is to, they love the upside of Bitcoin. They love the fact that it can crash through $100,000 and, they're making a killing off of it, especially people who got in really early. They don't love the downside risk of it. They don't love it when it crashes 75% in a year like it did when FTX collapsed. They didn't like that they didn't get any bailouts for the FTX collapse. I return to this often, but one of the biggest blessings, if there was any, from the FTX collapse was that if you didn't hold crypto, like if you didn't have Bitcoin on FTX, you didn't really know what happened aside from the headlines. Like you weren't losing your job because the economy tanked. You weren't dealing with the ramifications like we saw in 2008, when it didn't matter if you had a risky mortgage or even owned a house or any exposure to real estate related securities. You still felt the financial impacts of that because of how much contagion there was through not only the national but the international financial system. And so I think that that's a real concern going forward with crypto, especially as the crypto industry is very much trying to remove the firewalls between crypto, traditional finance, and the banking industry. If banks are getting meaningfully involved with crypto, there's huge risk there, and risk to that we might end up with something like a bailout.
I forgot.
You're so scared. You're talking about risk and danger. It's like dance the firewall. The firewall is the cool dance. We're going to have.
What does that even mean, Elon?
Listen,
He's been doing a little too much ketamine.
Stop trying to find. I have done a lot of ketamine, but it's not nearly enough. Stop trying to find meaning, Francesca. What I'm trying to tell you is that hodl, where you have a coin, cryptocurrency that you hodl onto. Hodl is now going to be the law of the federal government. So we're going to make it very difficult.
They kind of said that.
We're going to make it very difficult to sell cryptocurrencies. You're going to have a letter from your congressman or congresswoman, and you're going to have like the SEC XXXXX is going to have to sign off if you want to sell any of it. So price only going up, and no one ever even able to cash out and use it in any way.
Wait. Shut up. What do you mean, Molly? What are they saying? I don't even know what hodl is.
Yeah, so hodl is a crypto slang that basically means don't sell no matter how badly your holdings are doing. You just hodl forever. That was kind of the theory behind Trump's promise around a Bitcoin stockpile. He was saying that instead of taking the crypto that is held by the US government and usually sold off eventually, and usually returned to victims of crimes, I should mention, like a lot of that.
What?
Like so for example, the government.
Victims, sorry, not perpetrators, victims.
Yeah, victims. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So like if your Bitcoin was stolen when Bitfinex was hacked in 2016, hopefully you will soon be receiving some of that money back via this restitution process. But Trump made these promises when he was speaking at the Bitcoin conference about how they would establish a Bitcoin stockpile, which would basically be a policy of never selling Bitcoin that the government holds. And it's a very strange strategy because it would presumably mean that victims would not be getting restitution for the crimes that were committed against them. But it's also just a strange one in terms of a financial strategy because, the idea that you would never sell an asset that you're using as some sort of a reserve is kind of not the point,
No, right. Well, it's total like government interference. I mean, if that's the case, it's very scary. Molly White, anything else we need to know? What else? What other horrors wait around the corner?
I mean, I think there's a lot to worry about, unfortunately, going forward when it comes to crypto industry influence in the elections. It feels really early to be talking about this, but they are already planning to do a similar influence campaign for the midterms. Various companies have already promised I think a combined $75-ish million, and I'm sure there will be more coming. So, the concentration of Bitcoin and crypto money in Congress, I think, is a really serious issue. And one that, I think we really should worry about even more broadly than the crypto industry. Corporate money in politics is a huge problem.
Right.
And I think that, it really should be, we should really be considering attempts to overturn the Citizens United decision in 2010, which really enabled this type of spending, and which, we've seen since then, corporate spending has just ballooned every election.
Absolutely.
And I think this election is a very clear illustration of what happens when you allow that to happen. And I think, unfortunately, the next 4 years will be a very clear illustration of the consequences.
I think it's great. Citizens United. Everybody comes together. Dance, 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 dance. Doge, doge, doge.
But not in like a Berlin sex club, though, because you can't get into those.
Like, who wants Berlin anyway? It's so far left-wing, communist, anarchist. I want like right-wing sex clubs, which are usually in my
Nothing
compound.
but missionary.
It's
very buttoned up.
It's on my airplane. When we people are always wondering, why am I flying so often between Matamoros and different from Berkeley and all these places? I'm getting like blowjobs. I'm getting blowjobs from people that I'm paying for.
Yeah, after you get your tartine, we see you, your bloated ass carb face. He's got tartine face. Someone who I knew who worked at Tartine was like, I used to see him go in there all the time. He'd come in.
I'm always milking my Johnson for future. No, it's a very important commodity in the future crypto world. It's going to be Elon Musk's demon.
The last thing I'll say, Molly, is it's like, that's terrifying. And you're right. We have to get money out of like our political system. And I think it starts with the Democrats. Like they have to all like the primary. There's no reason there should be this much money in the primaries. It's what you just said. You just talked about crypto being in Bowman's race. Well, Bowman's race was a fucking primary. So, and was Cory Bush's, and that's how they were ousted.
Porter. Yep.
And right. Exactly. So
yeah. And I think one thing that is really important on that point is that getting money out of politics is like an enormously popular proposal. I grew up in Maine, and Maine had a ballot initiative this last election about basically reducing how much corporations are allowed to spend on elections, with the ultimate goal of, challenging Citizens United, hopefully. It passed with 75% support, and it was like just overwhelmingly popular.
I did a story on that. I think maybe for a bonus episode, like one of the bright spots of the election.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, one of the few bright spots. And so, like, I think we can see that it would be a really compelling platform for the Democrats, and I really hope they wake up to it. But unfortunately, money is a very attractive thing even to Democrats, and so there is that barrier to passing at the type of, unfortunately, challenging legislation that it would take to overturn such a thing.
I'm just like, where are the fiscal conservatives we are fucking been promised? Like, they're you know what I'm saying?
Trump
like
administration.
What? Yeah, they're all like, well, let me just sell this coin first, and then I'll be back to my fiscal conservatism. Like, it was all bullshit. I mean, in so many ways, and I think that's what's the most interesting thing about the crypto industry is that in so many ways, Trump has exposed that the right has been full of shit for so long, but specifically on sort of like the economic conservatism, the sort of like, not spending too much and and taking care of the economy. I mean, as if that was ever the case, when they did tax breaks, but like crypto's imploded that idea, imploded the idea that we need to not spend so much, or we need to be careful, or whatever.
Especially when they're talking about literally spending taxpayer money to establish a Bitcoin reserve. Like, that is the opposite of fiscal conservatism.
Well, it's like you got to decide what you're going to spend on. You're going to spend on people who are sick. Oh, how boring. You're almost dead anyway. Better to spend on things like low orbit satellites and cryptocurrencies. That's right. It's just a matter of priorities, and the priorities need to be in the future.
Oh God, go to Mars, bitch.
I'm trying
to.
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to squeeze as much wealth out of this planet as I can so that I can get myself to Mars.
But you won't be the first one. You'll send the Neuralink chimps before that you send yourself.
Look, it's going to be me fucking them on the surface of Mars, and that's how I'm going to live out my last 8 years or so on this planet. I mean on that planet. Bing, 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 and I'm going to upload my consciousness to the moon, the Phobos, the moon of Mars will be uploaded with my consciousness. So I'm gonna be like a flying space rock forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Doge, 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 doge.
Molly, our interviews usually aren't this hilarious. But thank you so much for being on. I'm dying over here. Thank you so much for being on, everybody. Please check out Molly. Where can we see? Obviously, you're doing an amazing job tracking all of the cryptos that have, like, again, scammed so many other people. On Web3 is going great.
Mm-hmm.
Follow the crypto.
Yep.
.org.
.org, yep.
And then you have a newsletter.
Yep, citationneeded.news is my newsletter.
Citationneeded.news. And are you on social media, or you've got enough things that you...
Yes, I'm on all of them. Usually as Molly0xFFF, or I'm on Blue Sky at molly.wiki.
Molly.wiki. All right. Come back soon. Thank you so much, Molly. Appreciate you. And thank you, James. Are you there?
Yeah,
James,
no, we're at it.
Are you there?
Yeah, we're here. Let me see if I can find him for you. Hi. Hello, Francesca. It's so fun to see you on the internet. Enough seeing you in person at shows. It's so great to really connect on the internet.
We have more time now. Well, we have one final segment, and I was going to actually bitch about this, but I've decided to turn it into a segment because, as you know, we're in this really hilarious little no man's land politically, where Joe Biden obviously is a lame duck president, not going to do any of the cool crime we want him to commit.
What do you mean, lame duck, pal? It's not, what do you mean a lame duck? That's a mallard. That's a mallard man. Come on.
That's very Southern. I feel like that's.
Hold on to your pants, France.
God damn it! That's gonna be the name of this episode. Hold on to your pants, France. Okay, well, Mr. President, he's done. He's gone. He's left. A lot of people are wondering how they can hedge their bets with Donald Trump so that they might be spared in the coming attacks on, the enemies list that Kash Patel has put together, and whatnot. So I'm calling this segment.
They're going to go mostly after celebrities, but yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Selma Hayek is going to suffer forever rejecting Donald Trump. I'm calling this next segment Kiss the Ring, in honor of all the people who are just doing complete turncoat shit and trying to hedge their bets to fall into Donald Trump's good graces. This is a weird one because this is a very particular angle of kissing the ring. Now, last week we talked about Joe Manchin, in response to the Hunter Biden pardon, has said that he thought that Biden should pardon Donald effing Trump, even though Trump, all the cases have effectively been suspended. They're not going anywhere. The statute of limitations likely runs out even when he's out of office, unless it's suspended. Some shit I don't understand. But basically nothing's going anywhere. So, that was funny because it's Joe Manchin, and Joe Manchin's basically a Republican, and it's hilarious. He's like, I think we should, pardon Donald Trump. But here is, of all people, Representative Jim Clyburn on MSNBC saying the exact damn thing.
Do you think that President Biden should pardon Donald Trump? And if so, why?
Yes, I do think so. And I think he should pardon all of those people that have been accused and have been targeted so that we can clean the slate. We can have an air of possibilities for the future. If we keep digging at things of the past, I'm not too sure the country will not lose its way. Now, remember, President Trump has been indicted, has been convicted on state crime. Also, please remember that the United States Supreme Court has given him immunity. Biden will be demonstrating what he's always demonstrated to me, that he loves this country more than anything else other than maybe his family.
I can't even follow like this decrepit centrist logic for why to pardon Donald effing Trump. But I heard the end there was basically like, well, because even the Supreme Court's already given immunity and it'll make Joe Biden look really good, you know, when he's up against the wall and the firing squad led by Elon is like, go.
Yeah. There's a few things to say. We don't have much time, but the right wing is not going to be as moderate as Biden's not even left wing. The center, he was the center. He has been the center. The centrist fantasy was Joe Biden. Yeah. The right wing extremists that are coming in are going to do everything that the left was pushing Biden to do that he refused to do. They're going to pack the courts. They're going to pack the Supreme Court. They're going to have, we're going to have like 12 Supreme Court justices because the right wing is going to do it when the left wing should have done it decades ago. Biden should have done it this year. They're going to be really aggressive with arresting people. They're going to try to calculate how many tens of thousands of political activists they can put in prison camps without the country falling apart. That's going to be a calculation that they're already running with
Dennis Prager videos.
Yeah, they're running that question through their AI models right now. I guarantee you. Can we put 50,000 activists in prison camps and the country still goes on without noticing? Or can we push it to 100,000? So it's going to get really, really, really ugly. And I think Biden is a thing of the past and it's largely a failure and it doesn't matter what he does at this point. I think there was an argument for pardoning or better commuting Trump's sentence if Kamala Harris had won. That could have, if he had lost, that would have been a way to really turn a knife in his back. By being like, hey, here's your sentence, and you have to turn after 1 day in jail. We're going to commute your sentence just so that so that you have to be like, grateful to someone you hate. But obviously,
but I mean, I think it's true.
Really want to win.
First of all, number one, I don't put it past Biden to follow dumbass Jim Clyburn's recommendation to pardon Trump. I feel like he might, because normalcy reigns supreme, supposed normalcy. We don't want to look back. We don't want to, all that nonsense from the back. What are you talking about? They tried to overturn the election that your dude, who you lobbied for and you crushed the Bernie movement for, when they tried to basically deny him his rightful position as president, and you're like, we need to forgive that. Like, Clyburn will be marching all of us to the same, concentration camps that you're referencing. Like, these Democrats will sell you out every single time.
There's different narrative. There's different currents at the same time happening. So some of them have it right and some of them have it wrong. The idea that by being generous, you're going to convince Trump to be generous it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. He's unfixable. He wants to hurt people and he wants things to get worse for his quote unquote enemies. Yes. He wants the rich to get much richer, and he wants more homeless people, and he wants everything to be more expensive for everybody except the highest echelon of the society.
Right. There's other people. Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No. And it's not just him. Obviously, it's the cast of characters he surrounds himself with who either have like legit bloodlust like Stephen Miller, have legit like vengeful energy like Kash Patel, or are all these like, you know, tech fascists who just like you said want more little worker bees to feed into their, you know, flesh-eating robot models or whatever. Like there's something in it for everyone. And it's just wild that this is ostensibly a leader of the Democratic effing party. And he's like, we should pardon Trump. It's just, and I disagree. Like, I agree with you that like maybe it would have happened under Harris, which I would have lost all, you know, respect for. But that's the same fucking Barack Obama bullshit, right? Which is we're not going to, you know, hold any Bush official accountable for getting us into 2+ wars under illegal pretenses, for torture, for et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, let's just water under the bridge, man. And what happens? We have memory hold the Bush years, and we, you know, now you've got Democrats campaigning with literal children of Bush officials, and they lose and they lose and they lose.
I mean, that has not been said enough on television, at least. People on the internet and in real life, people say it all the time. But television pundits are they're walled off. They don't know any real people in their lives. They only know each other. So they don't know how incredibly unpopular with 100 million people it was to have Liz Cheney on the campaign trail and Dick Cheney giving a thumbs up to Kamala Harris from a distance. Like, no. That there's 100 million non-voters in this country, and that didn't help. Those people, everyone who respects Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney was already voted for Kamala Harris, and it was like 50,000 people, and they all have to be pundits and think tank people. There's no other demographic there.
Yeah, 100%. It's just really terrifying and pathetic. So that's why I like push back on. I know your initial Civil War thing was like more of a bit, but like I wish we had like leaders who would be like, I'm going to be the leader of the resistance. Instead, it's like Gavin Newsom who's like, may I clean up this homeless encampment for you?
Yes, you're going to see a lot of Democrats siding with psychotic fascist Republicans in rounding up political activists and falsely calling them terrorists. There's going to be immediately in January, February, tens of thousands of people who are falsely labeled terrorists. In this country. So yeah, sure, you can sure, I don't care one way or the other. If you pardon Trump, it's not going to have any material effect. We should be thinking about the people he's going to falsely label as terrorists coming up in the next few months. And I think one of the big things that's worth speaking out on to people who might hear me is jury nullification. If you can get on a jury, get on a jury and keep your mouth shut and be like, I'm happy to decide this fairly. And if you disagree with the law, you then vote not guilty. Now, a judge will never tell you that. A lawyer will never tell you that. They pretend that jury nullification is illegal, but it's not. It's one of the ancient powers of juries that goes back thousands of years. A jury is allowed to veto a law, no matter what the judge tells you. I can say it because I'm a comedian and I'm not a lawyer. I'm not in the courtroom or whatever. You're allowed to say not guilty if you disagree with the law that someone was brought in on. So
absolutely. I mean, and that's the other fucking thing that's so enraging about Trump is like, he was convicted by 2 different juries of his crimes. He was convicted for falsifying business records, and he was convicted of sexual abuse of E. Jean Carroll. 2 different. Those were juries. Those were 24 New Yorkers. And the right couldn't handle it. James Adomian.
He's not going to serve time no matter what.
No, of course not. Look, I found a still of you from your special.
I love that. What a great, I love that look.
That's a great look.
I'm really just enjoying the words in that moment. You can tell it's about the language itself.
The special is Path of Most Resistance. It's out by 800-pound gorilla. Watch it on YouTube. I'll share it in the metadata and all the description and everywhere. It's so funny. Where can people are you traveling? Are you gonna go around?
I'm on. Yeah, well, you're out. This is out today, right? So no time distance to wait for. So yes, my special's Path of Most Resistance. People like it. It doesn't have nearly the numbers of a right-wing comedy special, but for a left-wing comedy special, it's doing very well.
We'll get you there. And it's, what do you mean left wing? I mean, I guess so, but it's also just funny. You're just not propped up by
I like to bring up interesting political ideas and then just make the stupidest jokes about them. But yeah, you can watch that on YouTube, and it's pretty funny. I'm proud of it, and I'm on kind of a tour right now over the winter. I'm in Washington D.C. at Arlington Draft House this coming weekend, and then in January I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina at Good Nights Comedy. I'm in Portland, Oregon at Helium Comedy, and I'm in Irvine, California, in Orange County at the Irvine Improv. And I'm around LA doing my shows in LA all the time, and you can follow me on Instagram or Blue Sky to find out more about that, or even YouTube if you want to see clips and stuff.
Fuck yeah. James, thank you for being on. You're the best.
Thank you, Francesca. It's great to really see you where we truly belong in these sort of talking head squares.
Yes. One day I'll get a studio. One day it'll happen.
I'm with this. I'm fine with my young Frankenstein.
I love it. I love the up angle because we had to get the young Frankenstein.
Well, I didn't think of that.
Poster.
Would that have been better for you the whole time? Probably. I'm sorry. I just
if you're listening, he sounds great and he looks even better now. All right, James, take good care. Come back soon. Let's read some comments and F off into this good Tuesday afternoon. Benjamin Morrill says, so much vomit, fudge these war criminals. I think that's about Syria and Netanyahu, of course. Jackson, thanks for the super chat. Any good Luigi jokes? The best one I heard is Italians finally have someone better to celebrate than Christopher Columbus. I did see that one, and that was by Gianmarco Soresi, who's been on the show before. He was awesome. Nazi brains on my hammer. Ooh. YouTube isn't displaying the live show. Yes, I know, or I don't know, but we also need to give it sexier titles. To be frank, we don't give our shows the sexiest titles, and they deserve them. So we will work on that for the next year. Jeff Curry says muskets are way more fun to shoot than an AR. Like, I've never shot a gun, but that feels like it's right. Like, I feel like if I can pack, like it's like lighting a cigarette versus like packing a pipe. You know, if I want to pack the gunpowder and just like maybe take a risk with my life, like maybe this backfires and I'm, gone. Mark Gogan says, free Luigi. My man was with me playing video games for that day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Biting Gale, thank you for being a member. Says, thanks for continuing to speak truth to power, Francesca. Much love to you, your guest, the Orchada Armada, Frantifa, and of course, Mod Love. Yes, of course. Sending love over to Todd Roy, of course. Robert, thank you for your super chat. Says the CEO guy and the Trump guy are the right-wing libertarian fringe Jank thinks he's having a conversation with. The CEO guy and the Trump guy. Do we mean which Trump guy? I think I understand what you're saying. I do think that conversation is largely in his head. But yeah, I mean, what's interesting about the Brian Thompson murder is that it's one of these issues that sort of cuts across like party or ideology, kind of like the Epstein stuff. Everyone, no matter what political, or apolitical stripe, about Epstein, you kind of have suspicious feelings about his death. Like, it's one of those things. It's one of those we can all get on board type things. Ali Bubble says, who's the Orchada Armada? I need to join ASAP. The Orchada Armada, maybe tomorrow we'll look at what the Orchada Armada first did in their first act in 2016 at the inauguration of Donald Trump. The very first inauguration was to get those who believe in a Muslim registry to sign up for a registry. So that's what we did in the sea of right-wingers. And I have felt that's the last like real field piece I've done with Trumpers. And I was starting to feel unsafe. That was 2016, people. So it's rough. Again, I believe you can only actually interview Trumpers when you're like a 6'6" white man. So good thing I'm married to one, I guess, but he's also a Jew. So, they freak out at him. Rachel Atwood, a big slimy crypto bro, tried to challenge Elizabeth Warren for her Senate seat. She beat him by 20 points, a bright spot in these dark times. Exactly. And Molly, that was the one seat that they were unsuccessful at, right? But every other race that they invested heavily in, the crypto industry, they won it. So, but Warren is, the thing is that like Warren stands out. Warren made a name for herself. And that's kind of, especially as a progressive, what you have to do to not get, beaten back. And there obviously there's a big difference with Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman. They were, they're in the House. They were, whatever, first, second term, like they were not as nearly as longstanding as Warren. But it's almost like you're easier to pick off when you are less known. So anyway, people are talking about Coolio. I guess does Elon say Coolio? Of course he does. Magic says, is the crypto investment rug pull curve really that different from just capitalism more broadly? I think that's a really good point. And I think that was the point that Molly was making. It's like, well, venture capitalists basically do this, but it's not just investment in a currency. Like ostensibly there are services being offered or products being provided in the whole VC racket, right? But also people will still get money even if those services possibly go under or don't do well or whatever. I mean, and shorting stock is like that. Playing the stock market is also similar, especially playing it in such a way that is, risky. So yeah, I super agree with that. Dragon C. Morris says something I feel like a lot of us are saying, which not me, but a lot of us are saying, like, should I figure out crypto to try and get rich? Because I feel a pressure to get in on this and I hate it so much. I mined in 2012 when I didn't understand it and sold it off fast because it felt like a gift that would get outed sooner or later. Look, I will say I wouldn't do it if I were you. And you should make sure your retirements, your little Roth IRAs are solid. To put money in that's going to likely be there. But I definitely know people who have bought crypto, have sold it, got really rich off of it, or feel like they're just like gamblers in general. And they're like, what am I doing? Shouldn't I just get in on this? And it's like, I mean, if you're a multimillionaire, sure, fuck around with your money. I don't give a shit. I would do something else with it. But like, if you don't have that money, don't fuck with it. That's my, advice. Miss Callie says insurance companies are the death panels. This is reality. Like, this is the reality, right? Like, we're supposed to, think that what happened to Brian Thompson was abhorrent and awful and and it's like, okay, but like all of the people dying from preventable diseases or all the people slowly suffering with chronic pain. And as someone with chronic pain, I really have to, and if you have chronic pain, you know this, you go nuts. It is a form of being mentally unwell when you have chronic pain. It's awful. And especially when people want you to deal with it with painkillers or surgeries that you might not need. And back surgery is no fucking joke. And like, don't get me started on, me believing proselytizing about osteopaths, because I do proselytize about them. Matthew the Celt says, I don't see any reason why Francesca can't be the Rogan of the left. Thank you so much. Gary Cooper, amen. Overturn Citizens United. Braden Freeman Comedy says, save us, Molly. Gary Cooper says Ford's reputation was ruined forever by his pardon of Nixon. Oh, bringing about a little history. Okay. I mean, Nixon is rolling in his grave. Like, oh God, all the shit that I could have gotten away with. And with that, guys, I want to thank every patron at the $10 or more tier who so generously has joined the Frantifa, the Patreon, the Patron, also new members. Thank you so much in advance. And over on Twitch, I'm going to thank y'all tomorrow because your girl can't get her. Maybe I can get my act together in the next little bit. But I really appreciate you getting this shout out and more, and you're supporting this show and supporting our little labor of love. This is the Fart Song. Goes to the Frantifa. Vetras Varna, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate your generosity. Dong Bon Jovi, that's just a great name, but also thank you. Matt G, and Andrew Murphy, all new members, new patrons. Thank you over on YouTube to Kathy McIntyre for being a member for 8 months. Thank you to Tofurkeys for gifting 5 memberships. So kind of you. And let's see if I can... figure this out. I can't figure out anything. I'm so thank you for Crispy343. and some other people over on Twitch tomorrow. I'm going to thank all y'all. I appreciate you guys. Thanks to everybody who works on this show, to Paige Omick, to Maximilian Inhofe, to Andy Vasoyan. We're streaming Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays for 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. We got so much good stuff coming up. Send me fun stories to do. I hopefully will get to some fun stuff tomorrow. But until then, fight the power, fuck the patriarchy, free Palestine, and don't just bitch about it. Be about it. Bye.